They say if you stand at the mouth of Bell Witch Cave long enough, the silence will start to breathe back at you. The forest of Tennessee grows unnaturally still, as if the trees themselves are listening. This is where the Bell Witch story doesn't begin, but where it refuses to end. Long before flashlights, before cameras, before anyone dared to name fear, something unseen learned how to whisper here. In the early 1800s, the Bell family lived peacefully on nearby farmland until nights began to stretch longer than days. It started softly, scratching sounds, like fingernails dragging across wood. Then knocking. Then laughter. Not the joyful kind, but the slow, deliberate laughter that feels like it knows your name. John Bell would wake to voices floating through the darkness, speaking from corners where no one stood. Some prayed. Some ran, but the voices stayed. As the haunting grew stronger, the presence revealed intelligence. It answered questions. It mocked faith. It moved objects with purpose. In many cultures, such beings would be called Jinn, spirits that exist beside our world, unseen but aware. Capable of crossing boundaries when invited by fear, curiosity, or unfinished business. The Bell Witch seemed bound not to one body, but to the land itself, drifting like smoke through walls, fields, and finally, this cave. People claimed to see shadows detach from the darkness and slide along the walls, stretching and shrinking as if alive. Cold air rushed outward even in summer, carrying whispers that didn't echo. They spoke directly into the mind. Some heard children crying. Others heard their own thoughts repeated back to them in unfamiliar voices. The cave became a doorway, a thin veil where the living and the dead brushed past one another. Generations passed, but the story refused to fade. Visitors who mocked the legend reported sudden headaches, nausea, or an overwhelming sense of being watched. Flashlights flickered. Batteries drained. Footsteps followed behind where no one walked. Locals warned that the Bell Witch was never banished, only dormant. Like certain spirits in folklore, it waits, feeding on attention, on belief, on the unguarded moments when skepticism weakens. What makes Bell Witch Cave different from other haunted places is its continuity. The same sounds, the same voices, the same feeling of intrusion, reported across centuries by people who never met, never compared stories. Ghosts are often tied to tragedy, but this presence feels older, cleverer, more deliberate. Not lost, not confused. A watcher, a speaker. Something that learned long ago how to stay. Even now, when the cave falls quiet, some swear you can hear breathing that doesn't belong to you. And if you listen closely, the cave doesn't echo your voice, it keeps it. Point 1 is not just a fact whispered in history books. It is a living thread that stretches across centuries, binding the past to the present like a shadow that never fully detaches from its owner. The Bell Witch haunting is considered one of America's oldest and most continuous paranormal legends, not because it was dramatic once, but because it refuses to stop being remembered. In the early 1800s, when the Bell family first spoke of unseen hands, disembodied voices, and a presence that knew their thoughts, there were no ghost tours, no cameras, no prophet in fear. And yet the story survived, carried from mouth to mouth, from firelight to candlelight, growing darker with each retelling, not distorted, but strangely consistent. What makes this continuity unsettling is how little the details change. The same types of sounds described 200 years ago, scratching, knocking, whispering, are still reported today. The same sensation of being watched, of not being alone even in complete silence, echoes through modern testimonies. It is as if the haunting follows a script written long before the first witness arrived, repeating itself patiently for anyone willing to listen. Ghost stories often fade, evolving into myths or exaggerations, but the Bell Witch narrative remains sharp, almost disciplined, as though the presence behind it insists on accuracy. In many spiritual traditions, particularly those that speak of Jinn, there is a belief in beings who are not bound by time the way humans are. These spirits are said to exist in a parallel rhythm, observing generations rise and fall while remaining unchanged themselves. The Bell Witch fits this description uncomfortably well. It did not behave like a lost soul searching for peace. It spoke with awareness. It remembered names. It predicted events. It claimed it would return, and generations later, people still claim it never left. Such continuity suggests intention, not confusion, and intelligence rather than randomness. As years turned into decades, and decades into centuries, the land itself seemed to become an archive of fear. Children growing up in Tennessee heard the same warnings their ancestors once whispered. Travelers, unaware of the full story, described sudden dread without knowing why. When they later learned the legend, they were shaken by how closely their experiences matched accounts from the 1800s. This repetition is the heartbeat of the Bell Witch haunting, steady and unbroken, pulsing through time like a signal meant to prove existence. Ghosts are often described as echoes, replays of trauma trapped in place. But the Bell Witch behaves more like a narrator, actively shaping the story as it continues. It adapts to the era while preserving its essence. In earlier times, it tormented families in their homes. In modern times, it manifests through unexplained voices, shadows, and technological interference. The form changes, but the presence remains, as if it understands the age it inhabits. This is a trait often attributed to powerful spirits and Jinn, entities said to observe humanity closely and interact selectively. Suspense grows not from what is seen, but from what is expected. People visit Bell Witch Cave already knowing the legend, already half afraid, and yet they still report surprise when fear arrives in familiar shapes. A whisper in the dark, a voice saying their name, a shadow moving where no light should allow it. These moments feel rehearsed, as though the haunting remembers its role and performs it again and again, across centuries, for new witnesses who unknowingly step into an old story. The most chilling part of this continuity is the idea that time has not weakened the presence. If anything, belief has sharpened it. Each retelling adds fuel. Each listener becomes part of the chain. Like Jinn spoken of in ancient lore, the Bell Witch seems sustained by attention, by memory, by fear passed forward intact. And so the legend does not rest in history. It breathes, waits, and watches, repeating itself patiently, knowing that as long as humans listen, it will always have a voice. Moves deeper into the heart of fear, where witnesses are no longer just hearing stories, but experiencing something that responds to them. Across generations, people have reported intelligent voices, moving shadows, and physical disturbances connected to the Bell Witch. And what makes these encounters disturbing is not their violence, but their awareness. The presence does not merely appear, it reacts. It listens. It chooses when to reveal itself, turning ordinary moments into slow, building suspense that tightens like a breath held too long. Visitors describe entering the area with confidence, even curiosity, only to feel that confidence quietly unravel. The air grows heavy without explanation. Footsteps echo behind them, perfectly matched in rhythm, yet when they stop, the footsteps stop too. Just a fraction of a second later, shadows gather along the cave walls, darker than the darkness around them, shifting shape as if testing the limits of visibility. These are not random movements of light. They feel deliberate, as though something unseen is positioning itself just outside the reach of human sight. Then, there are the voices. Not distant echoes or imagined murmurs, but voices that speak with clarity. Some hear whispers carried on the wind. Others hear their names spoken softly, intimately, in tones that suggest familiarity. In earlier accounts from the Bell family era, the voice debated scripture, mocked belief, and answered questions with unsettling precision. Modern witnesses, separated by centuries, report the same thing. The voice knows when to speak and when to remain silent. This continuity across time transforms the experience from a simple ghost story into something closer to a conversation that never ended. In many traditions, Jinn are described as beings capable of speech, deception, and interaction with humans, spirits that can observe, imitate, and manipulate perception. The Bell Witch exhibits these same traits. It imitates human voices. It uses language to unsettle rather than comfort. It creates disturbances not to frighten immediately, but to build tension slowly, allowing fear to bloom in the mind before the body reacts. This methodical approach suggests intelligence, a calculated awareness of human emotion. Physical disturbances deepen the spell. Objects have been reported to move without touch. Sudden gusts of icy air rush through closed spaces. Unexplained tapping begins softly, then grows louder, as if something is testing how much attention it has gained. Witnesses describe feeling hands brush past them, not grabbing, not pushing, just enough contact to erase doubt. These moments echo the earliest accounts from the 1800s, where beds shook, covers were pulled, and unseen forces announced themselves with confidence. What heightens the suspense is the pattern. These experiences follow similar rhythms regardless of who the witness is. First, unease, then sound, then movement. Finally, the unmistakable sense of being acknowledged. It feels less like stumbling upon a haunting and more like being noticed by it. Ghosts are often imagined as trapped, repeating fragments of the past. But this presence behaves like something fully aware of the present moment, adjusting its methods to its audience. Even skeptics find themselves shaken, not by what they see, but by what seems to see them. Cameras malfunction. Recordings capture sounds not heard at the time. Silence stretches unnaturally long before being broken by a single noise placed with perfect timing. This orchestration suggests a spirit that understands suspense, one that knows fear grows strongest in anticipation. Like certain jinn spoken of in folklore, the Bell Witch does not rush, it waits. Through all these encounters, the legend maintains its continuity. Different people, different eras, same experiences. The same shadows leaning in. The same voices speaking from nowhere. The same physical signs announcing a presence that refuses to be dismissed. Each witness becomes part of the ongoing narrative, another voice added to a centuries-old chorus, reinforcing the idea that whatever inhabits Bell Witch Cave is not fading, it is observing, responding, and continuing its silent conversation with the living. Pushes the story beyond ordinary hauntings and into a darker, more ancient territory, where the Bell Witch no longer fits neatly into the idea of a wandering ghost. Many who study the legend believe the entity resembles Jinn, like spirits described in ancient folklore, aware, unseen, and bound to place rather than to a single life. This belief does not come from imagination alone, but from patterns that repeat with unsettling precision, patterns that echo spiritual traditions far older than America itself. Unlike typical ghosts, which are often linked to unfinished business or tragic deaths, the Bell Witch shows no signs of confusion or loss. It speaks with confidence. It remembers events across decades. It demonstrates knowledge that should not belong to any one human soul. In early accounts, the entity referenced events it had not witnessed in physical form and spoke of the future as if time were not a barrier. This sense of timelessness aligns closely with descriptions of Jinn, being said to exist outside human constraints, watching generations rise and fall while remaining unchanged. Suspense grows when we consider how the presence interacts with space. The Bell Witch does not appear attached to a body or object. It drifts. It fills rooms without entering them. It lingers in corners, in shadows, in places where light hesitates. Visitors to Bell Witch Cave describe feeling as if the air itself is occupied, thick with awareness. This mirrors ancient beliefs that Jinn and powerful spirits inhabit thresholds, caves, ruins, forests, places where boundaries between worlds grow thin. The cave is not just a location, it is a vessel, holding something that chooses when to reveal itself. Continuity strengthens this interpretation. Centuries apart, witnesses describe the same behavior: the intelligence, the manipulation of sound, the calculated timing of fear. The entity does not repeat a single moment like a broken recording. Instead, it adapts. It listens before it acts. It reacts differently to belief, skepticism, prayer, or mockery. Such adaptability suggests a consciousness capable of decision. Much like Jinn in folklore, who are said to observe humans closely and respond according to intention and emotion, the Bell Witch's use of voice is especially telling. It does not simply moan or cry as many ghost stories describe. It speaks. It debates. It mocks. It imitates. It chooses words meant to unsettle, revealing knowledge of human fears and beliefs. Ancient texts often warn that Jinn can mimic familiar voices, using recognition as a weapon to break psychological defenses. When witnesses hear their names, spoken softly from the darkness, the fear does not come from sound alone, but from the implication of being known. Ghosts are often tied to a past moment, replaying fragments of their existence. The Bell Witch, however, seems invested in the present. It engages with whoever stands before it, whether in the 1800s or the modern era. This ongoing interaction creates a sense of continuity that refuses to fade. Each encounter feels less like uncovering history and more like stepping into an ongoing relationship, one that the entity remembers even if humans do not. Suspense deepens when belief systems collide. Some who approach the presence with religious confidence reported being challenged, even mocked. Others who entered skeptically felt their certainty slowly erode as unexplained events unfolded with precision. This selective engagement reflects Jinn lore, which often describes spirits testing humans, feeding on attention, curiosity, or arrogance. The Bell Witch does not reveal itself fully. It offers just enough to disturb, enough to ensure the story continues. Bound to place yet not imprisoned, intelligent yet unseen, ancient yet active. The Bell Witch exists in a space where ghosts and Jinn overlap. It feels less like a soul seeking rest and more like a watcher tied to land, memory, and fear itself. And as long as people continue to step into its territory, listening for whispers and watching shadows move where they should not, the presence maintains its quiet authority, stretching its influence across time without ever needing to leave. Draws attention to the most unsettling belief surrounding the legend. That Bell Witch Cave is not merely a haunted location, but a gateway. A fragile opening where the physical world and the spirit world brush against one another. This idea has persisted with remarkable continuity, whispered through generations as though the land itself passed the warning forward. From the earliest accounts to modern testimonies, the cave is described not as a place where something happened once, but as a threshold where something is always happening, just beyond ordinary perception. Caves have long been feared and revered in folklore across cultures. They are places where light surrenders quickly, where sound behaves strangely, where direction loses meaning. In many traditions, including those that speak of Jinn, caves are believed to be dwellings or passageways, spaces where spirits gather, because the boundaries between worlds are thin. Bell Witch Cave fits this ancient pattern with chilling precision. Visitors often describe the sensation of crossing an invisible line as they enter. A sudden pressure in the chest, a ringing in the ears, as if the environment itself is reacting to their presence. Suspense builds slowly inside the cave. Sounds do not travel normally. A whisper can feel close and distant at the same time. Footsteps echo where no feet move. Shadows stretch unnaturally along the walls, bending around corners before the body does. This distortion of normal sensory rules feeds the belief that the cave operates under a different set of laws, one not fully bound by the physical world. Ghosts, Jinn, or something older seem to use this space as a crossing point, slipping in and out of human awareness like breath in cold air. What strengthens the gateway theory is the consistency of experiences. Witnesses separated by centuries report the same phenomena: sudden temperature drops, unexplained voices, feelings of being watched by multiple unseen presences rather than one. This suggests not a single spirit trapped in place, but a location that allows movement, a doorway that opens and closes according to conditions unknown to humans. In Jinn lore, such gateways are said to activate through attention, fear, curiosity, or disrespect, acting like keys. Bell Witch Cave, with its long history of storytelling and belief, may have been opened repeatedly, never given the chance to seal. Ghost stories often focus on what is seen, but here the terror lies in what is sensed. People describe moments of silence, so heavy it feels intentional, followed by a single sound, placed with perfect timing. This orchestration implies awareness, as though something on the other side of the threshold is listening, waiting for the precise moment to respond. The cave does not simply echo human presence. It answers it. That response is what transforms the space from haunted to active. Continuity reinforces this fear. Each generation adds new stories, yet the core experience remains unchanged. The same unease, the same auditory illusions, the same feeling of crossing into a space where rules are different. This repetition suggests the gateway has not weakened with time. If anything, belief has sharpened it. Just as Jinn are said to gain strength from acknowledgement, The legend surrounding the cave may have fed whatever moves within it, keeping the passage open. Ghosts tied to gateways are often described as guardians or messengers, rather than wanderers. The Bell Witch seems to control access, revealing itself selectively. Some leave untouched, while others experience intense fear or physical symptoms. This selectivity supports the idea of a boundary being managed, not broken. The cave becomes a filter, allowing certain experiences while withholding others, deepening the mystery and sustaining suspense. Standing at the cave's entrance, one feels less like a visitor and more like a guest who has not yet been invited inside. The darkness beyond does not rush forward, it waits. And in that waiting lies the true terror, the possibility that Bell Witch Cave is not holding a spirit, but opening a door, quietly and patiently, between worlds that were never meant to meet. Carries the most disturbing idea of all, that the Bell Witch was never defeated, never cleansed, never truly driven away, but merely fell silent, waiting for the right moment to stir again. This belief has survived with chilling continuity, passed down like a warning rather than a legend. Unlike ghost stories that end with peace, rituals, or escape, the Bell Witch story ends with uncertainty, and that uncertainty is where fear continues to live. In early accounts, the entity claimed it could leave and return at will. It spoke of time casually, as if years were meaningless. When the intense manifestations around the Bell family finally quieted, there was no sense of closure, only absence. And absence, in folklore, is often more frightening than presence. Many spiritual traditions, especially those involving Jinn, warn that powerful spirits do not disappear when challenged. They withdraw. They observe. They wait for belief to fade, only to reemerge when conditions are favorable. Suspense grows when we consider how the haunting resurfaces. Reports do not come in constant waves. They appear in clusters, as if something awakens periodically. Visitors describe long stretches of calm followed by sudden activity, a voice, a shadow, a physical sensation before silence returns. This pattern creates the impression of something testing the environment, measuring attention, deciding whether to reveal more. The Bell Witch does not overwhelm, it reminds. It leaves just enough evidence to ensure the story survives. Continuity plays a crucial role in this dormancy. Generations apart, witnesses describe the same sudden unease, the same cold awareness settling over them without warning. Even those unfamiliar with the legend report experiences that align eerily with historical accounts. Only later do they learn where they were standing, and only then does the weight of recognition fall into place. This suggests the presence does not rely on expectation alone. It exists independently, surfacing whether or not it is anticipated. The idea of a dormant spirit aligns closely with Jinn folklore, where such beings are said to retreat into hidden spaces, caves, forests, abandoned land, remaining aware while unseen. They are believed to listen, to gather information, to react when provoked or acknowledged. Bell Witch Cave becomes more than a setting. It becomes a resting place, a watchful point from which the presence monitors the living world. Silence, in this context, is not peace, it is restraint. Ghosts often fade as memories blur, but the Bell Witch grows sharper with retelling. Each new account refreshes the legend, feeding it with attention. Some believe this attention is exactly what allows the presence to stir again. A whispered story, a nervous laugh, a challenge spoken into the dark. These small acts may function as invitations, reminding whatever waits that it has not been forgotten. Suspense thrives in this possibility, that fear itself sustains the haunting. Those who dismiss the legend sometimes report the most intense experiences. This contradiction deepens the sense of an intelligent presence, one that responds not to belief, but to disruption. In Jinn lore, disrespect or denial can provoke interaction. The Bell Witch seems to follow this pattern, revealing itself when challenged, retreating when observed too closely. This selective engagement reinforces the idea of a conscious entity choosing when to act. The most chilling aspect of dormancy is the lack of finality. There is no moment in history where the Bell Witch is declared gone. Only moments where it is quiet. And quiet, in haunted places, is never empty. It is filled with listening, with waiting, with something unseen holding its breath. As long as shadows still gather in the cave, as long as whispers still find new ears, the Bell Witch remains not a story of the past, but a presence paused, aware, patient, and ready to remind the living that some hauntings do not end, they simply sleep. And now, as the story loosens its grip and the echoes begin to fade, remember this: some places do not want to be understood, only respected. The Bell Witch legend survives because people keep listening, keep wondering, keep stepping closer to the darkness instead of turning away. Whether you believe in ghosts, jinn, or unseen forces that walk beside our world, one truth remains unchanged. Fear does not need proof to feel real. It only needs silence, imagination, and a place where shadows linger a little too long. If this story followed you into the quiet, if you felt that pause between heartbeats, where something might be listening, then the spell has already done its work. If you enjoy stories that uncover the hidden layers of haunted history, ancient spirits, and places where worlds collide, don't let the story end here. Share this with someone who loves mystery and the unknown. Someone who listens closely when the night grows quiet. And if you want to keep walking these shadowed paths together, through haunted caves, cursed lands, and legends that refuse to die, subscribe now. Because the next story is already waiting, and it knows you're coming.